the fundraisers, planning, and managing for the fall sports season during this uncertain time. I'd like to thank all of you for being here today. We have a great panel. I'm Dan Cloran, Executive Associate AD for Development Administration at Ohio State University and a member of the NAADD Executive Committee. Joining us on this great panel today, great panel of folks here, is Amy Folan, Executive Senior Associate AD at the University of Texas. Amy oversees the Longhorn Foundation and the Ticket Office and has been to Texas for 18 years. I'd also like to welcome Ryan Peck, Executive Senior Associate AD for External Ops at the University of North Texas. Ryan is in his second year with the Mean Green, but after 5 years at the University of Denver. Also like to welcome Markus Jennings. Markus is the Associate AD for External Affairs at Sacramento State. He oversees fundraising, marketing, branding, promotion, media relations, and ticket sales at Sac State. And he's also a member of the NAADD Executive Committee. And then finally, Matt Borman, Deputy AD for Development at the University of Georgia. Matt has been at Georgia for 3 years after spending 8 years at West Virginia. And Matt is also a member of the NAADD Executive Committee. So I'd like to thank all four of you for taking the time today and spending some time with us. Little ground rules here before we get started is I'd like to welcome you to this webinar. It's the time of uncertainty and challenges facing all of us in the fall. I want to put a reminder out there that to all of you that we are not sure and things change daily is what you're going to hear from the panelists and from me if I answer, because we all are in the same boat that things are changing every day. So keep in mind that our plan for this is really to generate conversations and maybe come up with ideas of things that that you may or may not be working on as we prepare for a very, very uncertain fall. We're also going to look at ending, how we're going to end this fiscal year and some of the things you're doing. Also, as an awareness, wanted you to be aware that we're recording this and it will be made available to our NAADD membership when this is complete. So we have over 460 participants on today's call that have registered. The best way to view this would be go to active speaker view in your top right hand corner of the Zoom. Not that I want my face large on your screen, but that's probably the best way to hear the answers in the best way possible. So I really thank you all for joining us today. The last thing is we want to make this as interactive as possible. I've got a few questions, but I'd rather open it up because we have such a large group. There might be a few questions that are out there that we have not thought of or I have not thought of. So please use the chat feature to submit some questions. And if you have questions, that will come to me and then I will pose those to the panelists as well. So if without waiting any longer, let's get started on the first question. And this is going to be for all our panelists right now. And it's really, how are you guys planning to handle ending the fiscal year the way you are? And what are some of the things that you're doing for projections in fiscal year 21? And I'd like to open it up to Amy to start and allow you all to chime in.
Thanks, Dan, and it's good to see everybody. Seeing some great colleagues out there that I haven't seen in a while. You know, I think at Texas, we're fortunate. I have a great team, and these adversity times really get to show you what you're dealing with. And we had a renewal that was originally due March 20th. So the first thing that we did is we extended that out to May 1st, and we reallocated all of our resources and our team. Everybody from top to bottom got on the phone, and we reached out to everybody in the Longhorn family that had not renewed and figured out how we could help everybody. So we did have some general guidelines, but we also really try to reach out and customize for our fans and the Longhorn family and do what we could to help. We all know these are unique times. And when I even think back to a month, which seems like a year ago, we knew that we didn't have all the answers. We still, like Dan said, we have sometimes more questions than answers, but I think we really let our fans and our donors dictate to us how we could best help them within the parameters that we need to make sure that we're responsible to the university. So how that's changed has been daily, and our team has done a phenomenal job, and we've been servicing the community, and we'll continue to do that daily. With the economy where it is, where some of the challenges and everybody being at home watching the news all the time, it's been positive to see the impact and our staff's had, and Longhorn Nation has rallied, and our renewal rate has been very promising. So we're excited about the year ahead. We're all getting through this together. And how that's changed what we do is, I don't really think it's changed what we do. I think what we do has stayed the same. You know, we're university centric, we're donor centric, student athlete centric, and even our staff taking care of each other. But I think how we do everything has changed, and it will continue to change. And we really try to listen to our fans and our staff and learn every day about how we can take what we do and get better. So we have not made any hard and fast decisions in a lot of regards, but every day we're collaborating and communicating and navigating those trenches. We're very aligned with our university development community, and we will continue to let our donors help us tell us what Longhorn Nation can and we'll be able to accomplish together. So it's kind of a day-to-day task for us.
Great, thanks, Amy. Matt? You're on mute, Matt.
Thank you. I was just saying, I think you can look at this maybe two ways, Dan: annual giving and then major giving. And annual giving, we really weren't affected too much because our deadline was February 15th. And so obviously when you have that deadline and then the timing of when everything kind of shut down, we were already in the process, finished with our renewal process for the annual giving and working on tickets. And then we were able to see a 95% renewal rate on tickets. So our annual giving situation is in a pretty much as good a situation as it could be for the times that we're facing. And then when you look at major giving, we've just been trying to get creative. I think trying to find ways to interact with donors. We've had some Zooms with head coaches. Our major gift officers are reaching out to their portfolio, and that's helped us. And I think we're in a unique situation just because we've had some momentum in some things that we're doing capital project wise, but we've seen 30 gifts for about $2 million over the past 7-8 weeks. And that's just based on conversations that our major gift officers were having previous to when this pandemic situation started. We're certainly not asking anybody and making a solicitation right now, but the donors being engaged and then following up on those conversations that we had previously, we've seen some success there. But moving forward, as you asked for planning in 21, I don't think we have enough information right now to know what that's going to look like. And I know we'll talk a little bit about what donor visits look like moving into the rest of the year, but without having some certainty, it's hard to say exactly what we're going to be looking to doing into 21.
Markus?
Yeah, I like how Matt kind of broke that down a little bit. I'll talk about our end. We were actually on a record pacing year for our fundraising. Our participation numbers were up maybe about 20%. Our giving numbers were up, and especially on the annual fund, about another 10 to 15%. And so with the stoppage, basically for us, that March 9th was that date. We still had a chance to kind of close out some of the gifts we were talking with some of our donors. But what's interesting is our major gift officers had a chance to even close out some of the larger gifts that we've been talking to. You know, for us here in California, you know, they take social distancing pretty serious. And so one of our major gift officers had a visit still in person at the baseball diamond, and they stayed 6 feet apart and those type of things, but you know, it was still a personal ask and gift form. So I think for us, it's really just continue to communicate with our donors, and it's more than just making asks. And another thing too, I want to bring up, we're pretty much out front when this thing first started is how we can keep folks engaged. And so we developed a student athlete emergency fund. So that was something that kind of got people excited. So we had a Give Sac State Day partnering with the university, and that was the only push we had was Student Athlete Emergency Fund. So we may talk a little bit more about that a little bit later, but that was something that really kept the momentum for us.
Ryan?
Great, thank you, Dan. You know, I'll speak candidly from where I'm at, and I remember that moment when we had, we all were affected, and the NCAA canceled basketball tournaments, and as we try to build on donors' passions and excitement, we had a great men's team that I was, looking at how do we leverage, how do we make a run, how do we get our fans, further engaged in supporting us based on that run, and it was stopped completely. As we all were dealing with that reality, our staff, shifted very, very quickly and to be understanding, be more communicative, to let them know what was going on, and then looked at the month of April as our time of stewardship, checking in, building relationships, and we utilized our coaches who were a little bit lost, quite frankly, and every donor, got a handwritten note from our staff. We had our head coaches call every single donor, a lot of our season ticket holders at a certain level, just to hear it from a different voice and check in, and really just kind of say, hey, we love you, appreciate all you do. We can't wait to get back. And so we spent several weeks doing that. And I think as we're looking for direction, we have, as a staff, had hit a point where now we're turning the corner. Unfortunately, at North Texas, we don't have, the demand, the fan base that adheres to deadlines like a Texas or a Georgia or Ohio State. And so we have to create that now. And we moved our deadline, but our fans have always seen deadlines as being optional. And so now, I was rejuvenated by a couple of our donors that provide optimism and hope and excitement. And we're gonna go a little bit heavier here, starting out with reaching out, letting them know, hey, we're still planning. There's so many uncertainties, but we can't wait to get back to playing sports in the fall, and we can't do it without you. And so as we, the initial shock, month of connecting relationships, checking in, and now really pushing and saying, hey, there's a time that we're gonna need you again. We want to see you. We can't wait to be back around you. We're doing everything possible to make the adjustments, but we need you on board right now. And that's something for us that it's going to be, full go here over the next couple of weeks to be sure that we continue to hit the goals that we've set for this year, so that financially we're positioned the best way possible with all the cuts that we have to make as a department.
Yeah, one of the things I want to jump right into the fall season and specifically around football or any of the fall sports, because some schools may have their primary sport be men's soccer, women's soccer, whatever the fall sport might be. But in my 25 years, I would have never guessed that the NCAA tournament would have been canceled. We are now facing the possibility in every different state of a football season that could be shortened, could be full, could be not happen at all. So I'm curious, I'll go to you, Matt, first. You had a 95% renewal rate. How are you handling those that are questioning the potential of potentially playing? And are you encouraging them or telling them to wait? Ohio State has actually moved our deadlines back as well to the end of May. That we're giving people more certain. I'm wondering how you all have handled with the uncertainty of how the season's going to look. How have you all handled those who have renewed, especially at your rate there, Matt, at 95%? How are you handling those questions?
Well, they certainly have had those questions, is what are we going to do if the season is canceled or materially altered? And the answer that we have right now is you will have the opportunity for a refund for your annual gift to our Hartman Fund, and then also for those season tickets. And the reason we're using the word opportunity is because if that situation comes through and we are forced to, play under different circumstances with the football season, those funds that we have in-house right now are going to be vital for us to try to keep going and get back on our feet in a normal situation as possible in the following year. And so what we'll do is we'll craft a solicitation at that point, asking those donors to allow us to keep those funds with some incentive, whether that be 2 points per dollar. I know everyone's priority point system is different, but some type of incentivized priority point system, if we're allowed to keep those dollars in-house, and just try to provide that benefit and that incentive to help us out, because we're going to be in a situation where, nobody really ever feels sorry for the University of Georgia in our fan base, because they think we're printing money over here. And in a lot of situations, we're in a great circumstance most of the time. But once football is altered, that's out the window. And we're really going to have to appeal to their emotions to want to help the University of Georgia come back as strong as ever.
Anybody else on the panel, just speak freely if you have something to add in regards to how you're communicating with your people. Ryan?
Yeah, certainly. Well, I kind of look at it as a 3-phase approach, and similar to Matt said, being, cautious as to what they're going through and knowing they may want refunds. But even as we articulate that out, that's always our third option. And at first I asked them if they want to donate it and shift it as a philanthropic gift. And so we did that for some of our events in the spring, and, for some of our season ticket holders we had. And I was fortunate that so many people were so gracious and willing to do that. The second option is pushing it to the future. And, do you want to hold it as a credit on your account? Again, I try and keep it very vague for right now, because we don't know what the future's like. And then the third, if they want a full refund, we're happy to do that. And unfortunately, we did that in the spring with some softball games. They were mostly visiting fans that wanted the refund. They didn't want to show their generosity towards us. But, with all of our fan bases and donor support of it, as we share what we're going through, they are understanding, and they want to continue to help. And those are little pieces for us that have been financial gains on a smaller level. And we're going to roll that out here in the fall with our ticket assurance plan that articulates that same way, and saying, hey, we need you, we want to play, but if we're not, here's what you can do, and we can't do it without you.
Hey, Dan, I wanted to add a little
Markus.
as well. We here at a FCS level, our ticket revenue isn't as prominent as it would be as my colleagues here on the panel. For us, I'm sure you guys heard a lot. I heard some webinar a while ago that said, don't let a good crisis go to waste, right? So for us, what we're doing is, like, we have the Hornet Club right now, which is our annual fund. But as long as there's no donors on this call, we're actually switching everything up. We're now switching our even name to be the Sac State Athletics Fund. And that's really to get rid of the quid pro quo of giving. So we're getting rid of club, and, we're going to even pare down our benefits chart to maybe 5 different benefits compared to maybe 20 they could get before for making a gift. And it's really for us to just push the philanthropic side of giving, and we said, why no greater time to do that now? So with the backing of our AD, we're doing a big push to just change really the mindset of going from give to get to trying to be more philanthropic. Our stadium seats 20,000. We fill those up, only a couple times a year. But again, for us, it's more how do we change the mindset now of being philanthropic instead of more transactional on the tickets.
I want to follow up quickly too on one thing that Ryan said, and that's a great option that North Texas is using to provide a credit for the following year. We did look at that, but made a conscious decision not for people to be able to roll it over. And that was simply it. In our situation, we feel like at a 95% renewal rate this year, we're placing a little bit of a bet that when we come back in 21, if that's the case, that there will be a huge interest in getting back into Sanford Stadium and purchasing those tickets. So that gives us an opportunity to maybe get those funds twice, but that's a risk that we're willing to take right now.
Amy, anything to add or move on to the next question?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I don't have anything on the detail level. Like, I think they covered a lot of it, but I think backing up to your bigger question about how are we doing this, our structure is we actually put committees together to look at how to be nimble and continue to evolve with this process. So we actually have a game day experience committee, and they looked at the in-game, during the game and post-game experience. And then we had a game day hospitality committee that will look at all the catering experiences and how that works in our stadium. Then we had a logistics subcommittee, which really is looking at our suites and our clubs and all the different fan levels that we have and how that experience will work logistically. And then we have a donor experience committee. So what we just covered, a lot of, their payments, those options, credits, refunds, if that comes about, how we will handle that. We are handling similar to what people talked about, but that committee is continuously looking at how can we service our Longhorn family and how can we best take care of our responsibility to the university and our student athletes and coaches. And then we have a stewardship events and benefits committee. They're constantly doing what some people have talked about, like Ryan, Matt. They talk about how are we really reaching out to our donors in this new normal, and how do we keep them engaged when they're especially at home and they're looking for things to do. And then we also have a communications committee. We all know that with all these changes that we're going to have, even if the stadium's full and everybody's coming back, there are going to be new normals, and how do we address this COVID response. So we are going to have to communicate and over communicate when we have new and improved systems, and we are working to be as nimble and dynamic as possible to change as rapidly as we have to as this progresses. So that's kind of high level how we're managing getting to those answers.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We're going to go to one of the questions that came in through chat here in a minute, but for those of you out there who have the ability to put committees together to look at it, bring in experts from your facility staff to even the people who manage your facilities to get input from them on what possibly could come. Again, it's all what ifs at this point. So one of the questions that came in is, as schools are considering limited attendance scenarios that we've all read about, of course, for football, how are you all thinking about prioritizing certain population segments access to the stadium for games? For instance, student athlete families, students, donors, suites, loge boxes, et cetera. So I kind of expanded that, but so how are you all handling the scenarios? And again, I like to reiterate that none of this is set in stone because we all haven't even gotten a mandate as to what this could look like. But as you're going through scenarios, how are you prioritizing this, or what are types of things that you're looking at in general? Anybody want to go first?
I'll tackle that one just a little bit for us. And this is where, having an opportunity to oversee the external side helps me a little bit. I think a lot of people talked about this already, and we've already pushed straight ahead on the tickets and being mobile ticketing. I mean, we're just going full bore mobile ticketing, and that's for everyone, including, like I said, our students and fans. What's interesting is we just had a long talk about, especially like the prospects that's coming in, with my ticket managers, and how are we handling those things, getting in the stadiums early. So we're still kind of diving into that one. Not even a good answer there, but it's interesting that we actually are going full bore, not knowing what the season's going to hold, but the face mask, right? I'm getting folks asking me, how can I get that Hornet face mask? And so, here has been a big deal with that. So we're going to start even selling those with one of our corporate partners, and really just trying to understand. We're planning 3 different scenarios: scenario with an empty stadium, scenario where we have the normal, and then the scenario where if it could be just a certain amount of people, trying to get that 6 feet apart. And what does that look like? We even talked about if there's an empty stadium, how do you monetize that? Maybe everyone stream their games, right? So we don't have, like the Big Ten Network or anything like that, but, everything is on our stream, our platform. So maybe you do pay-per-view there. So there's just different things being thrown around right now that we're looking at.
Dan, I'll go next if that's all right, and just say, first off, we're taking our students and then our student athlete families first and making sure that they're going to have the seats that they need from whatever number of seats that are available to us. And then after that, we'll see what we can divide out between our donors. I don't know that we have any answers or final decisions on how we're going to do anything. We've thrown out there that we would use priority points, but that certainly isn't anything that's set in stone. I don't know what other options there would be. I mean, you could go on longevity, I guess, or some type of lottery, but right now our preference would be to go through priority points. But ultimately right now, there's so many scenarios out there. Instead of just making plans right now, we're gathering information and organizing ideas. So when that time comes where a decision is made, whether that's June, July, or August, we can spring into action at that point with all of the info that we've researched and organized and make a decision as quickly as possible. We're just preparing to make a decision quickly when we're able to do that.
Certainly, in addition to what Matt and Marcus said, you know, I think it's real key right now. We have to keep it very high level because we don't know. And yes, you know, our president's asked for 25%, 50% capacity, and I've been working with our business office a little bit as to what kind of financial impact that could be. And we kind of, similar to what Marcus touched on, we kind of broke it up for our stadium, 30,000 seats, and structured as the student section, the open air kind of lower bowl, and then kind of the closed and premium, which, you know, have a certain set of CDC guidelines that, you know, 36, right now it's, you know, 36 square feet per person is the space that you need. And so, but we haven't dove in exactly to, you know, hit go and share that information externally until we have to, because it'll, you know, I don't want to, you know, tell our fans that we're going to be limited. And, you know, if we are 50% and they, you know, they were already, you know, figuring out what family member they're going to cut out of their suite right now. So there is so much unknown that going through it. And so it's one of the beauties I think that's come out of this is our community and being able to talk to others and share. And so, you know, I was fortunate to see the Miami Dolphins plan that was shared, you know, that many people heard about. And, you know, they're talking about going down to 16,000 person capacity. And then, you know, I talked to friends at the Rose Bowl and kind of some of the things that they're being cognizant of and others on this call. And so, you know, for us, I still wanted to keep our focus on, you know, selling season tickets and the philanthropic donation side and getting our people to continue to support us. And, you know, doing that by doing it, we did a survey last week engaging, hey, how are you feeling? What, you know, will you come back if you have to wear a mask, as Marcus talked about, or if we have limited capacity, what is your appetite to do that? And very short survey. And I hope to get the responses back next week that can hopefully give us a little direction when we say, hey, this is what capacity is going to be. This is what we know. We're ready to hit go. And then we can strategize and approach it correctly here to get, you know, as many fans as we're allowed into the stadium.
Amy, anything to add there? Or?
I mean, they covered it. We also, I think I gave you our committee structure and I focused on the external side. We have a facility logistics committee and ticket operations is working with them on possible scenarios. But like Ryan and Matt and Marcus, we're focused on, you know, what we've been doing, and then we're preparing and we're able to pivot, and we're doing a lot of that through committee structure and getting everybody to collaborate across units on how to do that best. I think the unique thing that I found that not dealing with, also Dan being in this business a long time, is the medical aspect. Like 3 weeks ago, we huddled up with our medical staff and it was our external team. And I said, look, we've never asked you about looking at how we line people up to get into the suites or clubs. We've never had to bother you. And I don't want to pull you away from the student athletes. That's mission critical, but we need an infrastructure where we now have medical support staff to look at these things, because I'm not a medical expert and I can put together a million different plans and it doesn't mean anything. So we've been working closely with our medical staff, and that's been the biggest change for me. And they're great and they're super helpful, and they know, hey, this may not even be our expertise. And so we're kind of building that infrastructure to make sure we have what we need. And it's a whole new infrastructure that has not been present before.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. Some of the, you know, research that I've heard through others is, you know, themed masks for each game. You know, if you're doing a blackout at the stadium, you give everybody a mask at the front. to kind of bring some light to the fact of what they have to do. So what are some options there in regards to being creative with the new norm of potentially having to do that? So things like that, contactless concessions. How is each stadium going to go about with contactless concessions if possible? I know Markus mentioned, or maybe Ryan mentioned, the potential or the implementation of maybe going all digital ticketing, so you don't have the handover of the ticket to the ticket taker. So plexiglass between suites, things like that. That these are all ideas that we've heard about throughout the country. We're not sure what's possible to be implemented or not, but those are things that if you're out there and looking at those things, those are real conversations that other universities are actually having. So those are things that I would suggest you start thinking about. We'd love to have a full stadium, but what does that mean for donor hospitality? So one of the questions that came in from the chat here is, how are you all handling pregame field access, donor hospitality, things of that nature, as it relates to keeping the fans at a safe distance from the players, et cetera, et cetera. So how are you all handling potential tailgates and things like that? Anybody want to go first?
Yeah, I'll start that one again too.
Go ahead, Markus.
We have one thing I can say here at Sacramento State. We have a lively tailgating atmosphere. I mean, very lively. And what's interesting is our student section, student tailgate. I mean, you almost swear it's a nightclub going on over there. But with donors, what's interesting is we've already talked about, we do one large, again, it was our Hornet Club tailgate, but we're going to kind of limit that one this year. We're looking at more of the in-game hospitality compared to the parking lot type tailgating. So we're thinking about trying to maybe just eliminate that one this year to see how it goes, see how much pushback we get maybe. But again, it's just trying to minimize the time that our folks are together, because as you know, in the tailgate atmosphere, they're, shoulder to shoulder, drinking and or whatever they're doing. And as far as pregame on-field access, this is where, again, before just conversations been going on there. As of right now, the first step, we keep saying just essential personnel. But, obviously our the football program, they all have their recruits, those type of things. So far as the donor's perspective, it may be just essential personnel. Our biggest challenge is we have a large end zone hospitality area. And that's one that we are trying to figure out. Do we limit that now? Do we make it even more exclusive than it has been before? Because we've actually included some sponsors in there. So again, all this up in the air, but we're trying to just get some of these areas a little bit smaller than they have been in the past.
I think first off, we are still trying to figure all that out. So we have not gotten close to a solution there. But the one thing I was interested in reading this morning in a report from our caterer that works specifically in our premium spaces is that they were planning for us to have buffets still available with a single server with the gloves and the mask and serving each patron individually, which kind of shocked me. I was expecting to read that everything needed to be pre-wrapped, and I guess the quality there could be affected. So they still believe the best way to serve those in premium areas could still be a buffet where it's just with an individual server at each station.
Amy or Ryan, anything to add?
I'm right there of with the uncertainty of it, and it's on our list to tackle and adjust and field access and tailgating. And what does that look like? But we've thrown out ideas, we've gathered information, but we haven't officially said this is the direction that we're going to take. And I think that when you think about this from a fan standpoint, they are voluntarily going to come to our facilities and want to feel safe, want to feel, like they're, going to have a great experience. And part of our job is to be sure that we make sure it's as safe as possible and that we are putting our best foot forward no matter what the circumstances are kind of leading into it. And so part of my mind that's kind of shifted here of late as we gear towards thinking about tailgating, what does that look like? I want fans to know and to tell the story about how we're cleaning, how we've made adjustments to food service, what type of changes that we're going to put in place so that they're going to say, you know what, they're doing everything that they can. Where's their plexiglass if there's face-to-face interactions or ticket or, ticket lists or, the digital scanners walking in so they don't have to come face-to-face with a CSC worker or whatnot. And so a lot of my mindset right now is kind of saying, hey, once we develop our plan, how can I articulate it so they feel good, they want to come, they want to show up, knowing that we're going to do everything we possibly can, following the guidelines to make it a great tailgating experience from, when the parking, walking into the stadium, getting to their seats, whatever it may be.
Just to piggyback on that quickly, I do know that if we are, no matter what, our first priority is going to be to make sure everybody's safe. But when we get back to a full stadium, it's going to be really hard to manage social distancing. And so I've been on multiple calls the past couple of weeks, and they use the term security theater. And it's just being there, people having a presence of reminding people to use their masks, reminding people to, stay socially distanced if possible, and just putting someone in the restrooms to make sure people feel like it's getting cleaned up on a regular basis, and just putting measures in place where people really feel comfortable with the cleanliness and the safety of your stadium. And obviously it's going to help some, but I think we all know when we get 50, 60, 70 or 1,000 people or more in a stadium, it's going to be really hard to maintain the social distancing that we're realizing right now.
As it relates to facilities fundraising, I'm going to switch gears a little bit off the fall football season, but I think leading up to this, there's been a lot of questions that we've received about facilities and the fundraising activity as it relates to some of the upcoming projects you may have in the fall. No matter what happens with the sports. How are you all handling and have you had to put some projects on hold as a result of it? And if you have, how much have you tied those to the fundraising side of things as it relates to getting people more priority points, et cetera, et cetera? Is there facility projects you're looking at that you've had to put on hold as a result of this? And then if you have, how have you handled that with your donors?
Dan, I'll touch on two things there. And we had a previous gift that came in and we have a press release coming out this week about a golf facility that we're going to be breaking ground on. And that's still moving forward. And in the era that we're in, we put the president's eyes on that press release because he was so cautious about what type of message that would send when we're talking about, cuts and enrollments down and campus closed. But, here, we're rolling out plans for a golf facility. And so it was being very specific about it's donor funded. It's how much else this donor has done for the university as far as scholarships and other things. But we just had to be a little more cautious rolling it out. And leading into additional capital projects, we were building up this summer to unveil the most aggressive, athletic center project that this university's ever seen. And we had plans and drawings and we were developing strategy and teeing up donors. And candidly, we hit pause for right now. And there's so many other factors that we're spending our time with. And, if I'm hopeful we can get that lead anchor gift here in the next, 6 to 12 months and continue to move it forward. And we're still going to talk about it, but right now we hit pause until we're ready to really tackle it and tell that story to the world and our fan base.
And I'll jump in. I think that's the theme as well for us. It's kind of hitting pause. We had a couple facility projects that we've been in planning stages, getting some renderings done, those type of things. But what we've done is those folks that we've already approached in the past, maybe some of those lead gifts, those conversations are still kind of continuing, but we put the pause on really trying to talk to maybe some of the newer folks that we wanted to bring in on board on that one. So I would say probably the majority of us, even on this panel, being sensitive to this time and knowing what's happening, when there's people losing jobs and wondering how they're going to eat compared to us trying to raise money for facilities. We're just very conscious of that. And so, again, continuing those conversations that we've had, that we've started, but pause on everything else.
Matt or Amy, anything on the facility side of things? Amy?
Yeah, I would say that it's been a short time, even though it feels like a long time. And again, I talked about us having to focus on our annual fund efforts, but our leadership efforts are always ongoing. And we've, under Chris Alcante's leadership, had a lot of success and a lot of great vision that is in the progress of still happening. So, we've done what everybody else has been doing. We've been engaging with our donors, and we've been doing that from a leadership giving standpoint all the way through this. I think this has presented a great opportunity for a lot of people with the authentic, deep relationships that you have to kind of go through this. Has provided us the opportunity to even show just how strong those bonds are. And again, we'll keep moving forward. We have what we need to accomplish. We'll get that done. How we will do that might be a little bit different, but we'll work through it with our donors and our leadership. And we'll figure out a way to what we were going to do in the beginning, we'll still have to do in the end. And so we're just working through the best way to do that, like everybody else, being sensitive to the climate. But we've been very fortunate, and the Longhorn family's strong, and we've gotten through things like this before, and I'm confident that we're going to get through it this time as well.
So Amy, quick piggyback on that. With some of your solicitations, et cetera, are you basically treating it virtually with a Zoom call where you bring Chris in and you do some solicitations similar to what we're doing right now? Where is that how you're maintaining some of those relationships by doing some one-on-ones that way, or more group things?
I think a lot of them were just phone and visits. So now you're right, it's phone and Zoom. It's kind of what we're doing here. We're just still doing the same thing. We're just doing it through different mediums and different forums. So, those relationships were strong. We've had a lot of contact, the people that are usually at that level. And I have a great staff, and they have deep relationships. So we are just doing it the same thing, but like you said, in social distancing model. I mean, our staff can't travel now from the university through July 1st, but our staff left a Friday thinking we might be back in a couple weeks. And here we are. I thought it was week 9. I've lost track of what week it is, and we still haven't missed a beat. So, I think people that are creative, we're in the people business, and we're problem solvers, and we just continue to keep doing that. We still have the same things to do. We just have to figure out a way to get it done in this new environment with these new challenges.
So moving into some of the, another chat question here is, you're all leading development shops and overseeing development shops. What about your expectations of your development officers? Have they changed as a result of this? Are you expecting them to have the same amount of visits, same amount of quote unquote visits, phone calls, et cetera? How are you managing the expectations of your staff? Matt?
We've got a pretty strict metrics with our MGOs before we got into this situation, and they were doing a good job in this fiscal year leading up to where we are right now. I think I've just trusted them at this point that they're reaching out to their portfolio. And I know I've talked to them and got some stories of the conversations they've had, and I've talked to some donors, but really just trusting that group that they're going to continue the good work that they're doing and checking on those individuals in their portfolio. And, they're really not at this point supposed to be asking for money as a direction from our athletic director. So right now they're just reaching out, checking on people, and I'm trusting that they're doing that.
Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Similar to what Amy talked about earlier, that authentic relationship piece, and now is a better time than ever to continue to build that relationship. And I think with us is our mission hasn't changed. We're here to build champions and prepare leaders, and that, no matter what's going on around us, that's still what we're here to do as fundraisers for our individual universities. what I've kind of challenged at times is as you talk to, as you check in, as you reach out to these donors, you know, if we're not asking right now what you asking for a gift, it's, hey, you know, when we get back to normal, can I get a face-to-face meeting? And, you know, that's all I want from you, because they want to help. And it kind of opens the door. Some people that before may not have answered the phone or, you know, wouldn't respond to an email or whatnot. You know, they got a little more time now. We can say, hey, let's get together, you know, later on when safe. And I think that has allowed us to really, you know, grow our bonds so that when, as we, you know, need to get the leadership gifts and the major gifts in, they're going to be behind us and more supportive than ever, because we've done the right job building that authentic relationship during this tough time.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say very similar to what Ryan said, kind of stole my thunder a little bit. But you know what I've noticed? You get a lot of donors now who really want to learn about us, you know, our families. How are you doing with your homeschooling with your kids and those type of things? So that's where you get a chance to really build those, like Ryan said, authentic relationships with people. If people feel a little bit more closer to you, if they may haven't before, because we're all going through the same exact thing, right? And so I've enjoyed that piece of it. You know, we've even really start pushing out, you know, just getting to know everyone in the department, you know, what people do, you know, in our newsletter, we're adding things like, you know, get to know this staff member. And so all those things I think are helping. At the end of the day, we talk about this all the time with our team. They know what we do for a living. We all fundraisers, right? They know the ask is going to come eventually, but what do you do to get to that ask? And I think as far as the staff, like I said, like Matt said before, we're not really asking for money. It's more just, again, just building the relationship piece of it, and really how do I measure the cultivation piece now, right? How are you getting to that end goal? And that's the challenge we have as leaders right now.
We have about 10 minutes left. So Markus, one of the questions that came in from the constituents was approaching business sponsors for sponsorship renewals. Can you talk briefly about some of the process you might be going through if you've approached business sponsors for renewals?
Yes. So what's interesting is our institution, we've actually took our sponsorships in-house this past year and had a pretty successful year. And so what's been great for us compared to maybe having a third party as a Learfield is we are able to treat our sponsors just like we treat our donors, right? So when there's things are happening, we're able to contact them directly, and they feel like they're really part of the department. One great thing is now, like many people across the country, we're encouraging our donors to support our corporate partners, but we've taken it even a little further. For example, Army National Guard is a corporate sponsor, and like the Marriott and Larkspur hotels, and everyone knows the hotel industry has been hit, 80-90% cut there. And so we've been a facilitator. Army National Guard has been doing some things in the city, but we hooked them up with the Marriott, right? And so, you know, now this allows, you know, Marriott to maybe get, you know, some business that of course they didn't have before. And it's really just a win-win for us all. So now even our corporate partners, they feel that, hey, these guys are really invested in us and not just, you know, looking for the corporate dollar. And then the last piece, we do have some sponsors who haven't paid yet. But again, we're not going out and, you know, sending collections and asking for the money. We're just making sure we're staying connected to them and seeing how the business is going, because we know at the end of the day, when it comes time to really pay, they'll pay. So it's just those type of steps that we've been doing. I think that's been really good. Just treating the corporate partners just like our donors.
Great. Thanks, Markus. I want to have one more general question that came in here with the last few minutes we have is somebody asked the question that most events are being canceled over the summer that are important for funding and engagement, like golf outings and other things over the summer. Have you all addressed any of those functions or any of those situations and developed a shift from your annual giving program to a more COVID related fund to basically address a couple of those situations that we talked about, or that the question came in as engagement and funding? Or have you all, to combine those two things together or separately, have you all engaged in any of those specifics? Start with you, Ryan.
Yeah, and I'll tackle the golf piece specifically, because our golf tournament was supposed to happen right, a couple of weeks ago, kind of right in the middle of all this. And our staff member jokes that it was the most successful golf tournament he's ever ran, because there were no expenses and we had a lot of people that were so generous and willing to, keep the philanthropic support. And, we did some make goods of, hey, we'll get you out back on the course later on. And, but, they were doing it because they want to help and support us. And so, I think you can either, the cancel or postpone if you have the right weekend. But from an uncertainty standpoint, we said, hey, let's cancel our golf tournament this year, and we'll get back to it down in the future. And so it came out a plus for us, thankfully, out of the generosity of our folks. But when it comes to other events right now, we have gone some virtual, digital type of interaction pieces, over the summer, like many of us have. But I'm holding until we get a little more direction leading into the fall about what various, other COVID type events look like.
Amy, anything there?
We have a great, I think I said, creative team and our general relations engagement team. And like other people, we leveraged, and I know they came up with an idea to partner and get some trade with our marketing team. And so we reached out and asked people to nominate their favorite Longhorn and give them Tiff's Treats, which is a local cookie company down here, or HEB, our local grocery store. So we try to do some engagement that way to get people involved. And I think you might have seen on May 1, when we had our renewal deadline, we had a virtual tailgate, which was an all-day event put on, led by our external team, but also had all the coaches, all the sports featured. So we really have just, like I said, try to be creative and be fun and engage people the best way we can, which is all this new social distancing. So we have some great people on our team that think of creative and off the beaten path type things that maybe before, but they're all engaged and they're sitting at home. So we've been able to kind of leverage that. We haven't done the golf outings in a while in the traditional sense. So we're lucky we haven't had events like that. And I think I mentioned we have every 2 years an endowment featured event, and that happened March 1st. And so we've also been able to do thank yous, where we would take our student athletes that spoke at that engagement, did a great job, and our donors, and send those out. And I ended up doing a newsletter about every other Friday. Del Conte does one every 2 weeks, and we have a normal outreach. So we just put more layers in of more communication and more connectivity, because it is so hard in this social distancing environment. And so we found some success with some of those efforts.
Great, thank you. Matt or Marcus, anything to add? Matt?
Yeah, well, we've definitely had events canceled. I think they fall into two categories. A couple that we were planning for our really high-end donors, a group we call the Hedges, and they had some special interaction with head coaches that were planned. And in place of that, we've done a couple chalk talks on Zoom we did 3 sessions each for Coach Crean and Coach Smart with our football and basketball programs respectively. And there were about 25 people in each of those, and they went through some breakdown of film, which was neat for that group, and we got some good responses there. And then for the masses, I think everybody's in a situation where they do some type of coaches caravan, and that's been impacted. And so for the masses there, we did a Zoom. We recorded a Zoom with Coach Smart, Coach Crean again, and added in Joni Taylor, our women's basketball coach. And we were lucky enough that Maria Taylor is a former student athlete here at Georgia. She hosted that for us, and then we sent it out to all 16,000 donors, and we got some good feedback on that as well.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we're running up against time here, so I want to wrap things up. I'm sorry we didn't get to a couple questions, and one of them was about wills and retirement gifts, and I'll address that real quick. As we actually actively are looking at some wills and retirements. There was one school, and I can't remember, we looked at that they specifically did a remember when piece where they pulled some pictures from the past and talked about, we've been through tough times before, and they basically asked for them to consider some planned giving and some legacy gifts, and it's been fairly successful, and I'll try to remember what school that was, but it was a really cool piece that just had some nostalgic pictures, and they sent it out to their entire database that was 60 plus, and they followed up by phone with anybody over 75 years old, and they followed up with others by email that was under 75. So it was a good piece that I learned about. So with that said, actually it was Northwestern. Somebody just typed in and said Northwestern did that piece. So if you were interested in looking at what Northwestern did, it's a good piece. So I just want to wrap things up by saying NACDA and NAADD has waived the membership fees and dues for the 2021 year. I want to thank the entire organization for that. I think it's good for those who are members to give back during this time for universities that may be going through a tough time and would cut this as the professional development. So I want to thank NAADD for doing that for our constituents. The other thing, NAADD will have a few additional Zoom sessions over the next few months, so look for those. And I think we're right at 3 o'clock. So I'm going to say at Eastern, 3 o'clock Eastern. I want to say thank you again to Amy, Ryan, Markus, and Matt for your time. This was great. If you have any additional questions, folks, all of us you can find us through our websites, and feel free to reach out. But I wanted to thank you and thank the constituents on behalf of everybody on the panel. Thanks for being here. Enjoy your day. Stay healthy and safe.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.